I was renting this old dorm room, number 10, during my college days. Now, I ain't one to believe in all that scary stuff, but what happened in that room, well, it was something else. The dorm was this old building, more rundown than a beat-up car, and it was right next to this abandoned toy store. The windows all busted, toys scattered around, and weeds growing up through the cracks in the sidewalk. I moved into room 10 at the start of the semester, and it seemed fine at first. It was small, had creaky floorboards, and the walls were paper thin. But it was cheap, and I was a broke college student, so I didn't complain. It all started about a week after I moved in. I was up late one night, cramming for an exam. The clock on the wall said it was midnight when I heard it. A soft knocking on the window, like someone was gently tapping on the glass. I thought it might be a tree branch or something, but there weren't no trees close enough to reach the window. I went over to the window, and that's when I saw it. A shadowy figure standing outside. I couldn't make out much, but it was tall, and it was whistling this eerie tune, like a lullaby gone wrong. I tried to see who it was, but they were gone in an instant. I brushed it off as my imagination. Maybe I was just stressed from all that studying. But the same thing happened the next night, and the night after that. Every midnight. Like clockwork, the knocking and whistling started. I started asking my neighbors if they'd seen or heard anything strange, but they all shook their heads. They thought I was crazy. One night, I decided to stay up, waiting by the window to catch whoever was messing with me. I even had my phone ready to call the cops. Midnight came, and sure enough, the knocking and whistling started. I flung the window open and shouted, "Who's there?" The figure froze for a second, then bolted, vanishing into the shadows. I couldn't see their face, but I could hear their footsteps away. I couldn't take it anymore. I moved out of that room the next day, and I ain't never gone back to that old dorm. To this day, I can't explain who or what was knocking on my window and whistling that eerie tune every midnight. All I know is, it was real enough to make me leave in a hurry. I'm just the caretaker in the old dormitory. Every night, after I've locked up the place, I head down the creaky stairs to make sure all's quiet. Now, don't get me wrong, the place is ancient, but it ain't haunted or nothing like that. Least, that's what I thought. I'm walking down them stairs, and I swear, I start hearing this crying sound, like a kid sobbing. I'm looking around, thinking some stray kid snuck in, but there's no one there. Just me and the stairs, all quiet like. Gives me the creeps, I tell ya. Next night, same thing. I'm walking down those stairs, and there it is again, that crying. Louder this time, like someone's hurting real bad. But I'm telling ya, there's no one there. I even check behind the stairs, thinking maybe some kid's hiding, but nothing. Then comes the whispering. I can't quite make out what it's saying, but it's there, like a faint breeze rustling through the place. I'm standing there, looking up the stairs, down the stairs, all around, but no one's whispering, at least, not that I can see. I ain't one to scare easy, but this stuff's getting to me. Every night, same routine. The crying, the whispering, and no one around. I've even brought a flashlight to see better, but it don't help none. One night, I decided that I'm gonna catch this kid, or whatever it is, and put an end to this mess. So, I wait, hiding in the shadows by the stairs. Sure enough, the crying starts up, louder than ever. I hear the whispering, too, like it's right there in my ear. I start climbing them stairs real slow, flashlight in hand. And then, just as I'm reaching the top, I see it, a flicker of movement, like a shadow, darting around the corner. My heart's pounding, But I ain't backing down. I round the corner, and there, standing at the end of the hall, is this kid. But something ain't right. Its back is to me, and it's just standing there, like it don't know I'm there. I take a step closer, and that's when I see its face, or rather, the lack of one. It's all shadowy and indistinct, like someone's smudged it away. The crying and whispering are coming from it, I'm sure of it. I call out, asking if it's okay, but it don't answer. Just keeps on with the crying and whispering. I shine my flashlight on it, trying to get a better look, but it don't like the light. It starts shuddering, like it's in pain. Finally, I can't take it no more, and I bolt down them stairs, leaving that thing behind. I ain't never gone back up there at night since then. The crying and whispering still happen, but I ain't gonna mess with whatever that was. It ain't like nothing I've ever experienced before. A few years back, I found myself staying at this rundown old dormitory. It weren't much to look at, just a decrepit place on the outskirts of town. Now, I ain't one to scare easy, but this place, it gave me the creeps from day one. The dormitory stood tall, but it had this strange, eerie vibe about it. The paint was peeling off the walls, and the floor creaked under every step. It looked like the kind of joint that hadn't seen a fresh coat of paint in ages. The windows were cracked, and they squeaked when the wind blew through them. This place looked like it had seen better days. I figured I'd stay a week or so, just needed a place to crash while I sorted some things out. The owner, a grizzled old fella named Mr. Johnson, rented me a room without much fuss. He had this strange look in his eyes, like he knew something I didn't, but I shrugged it off. The first night was quiet enough, but as the days rolled on, things started getting weirder. I'd hear these faint whispers in the hallway at night, like folks talking in hushed tones. At first, I thought it was just the other tenants, but as the days went by, I realized there weren't no other folks sticking around for long. You see, nobody seemed to last more than a week in that dormitory. Every morning, I'd wake up to find a new face in the hallway, someone new checking out. They all had the same bewildered look on their faces. Like they'd seen something that shook them to their core. And none of them would say a word, just pack their bags and bolt. I got to chatting with a few of them before they skedaddled. One guy, Tom, told me he heard strange voices whispering in his ear at night, telling him things he couldn't quite make out. Another gal, Sarah, said she felt like she was being watched, like there were eyes on her even when she was alone. As for me, I started feeling it too. Shadows seemed to move on their own, and sometimes, I'd hear footsteps in the empty rooms next door. But it weren't just me, it was like the whole place had a life of its own. I'd see chairs moving when no one was sitting in them, and doors would slam shut on their own accord. One night, I mustered up the courage to ask Mr. Johnson about the history of the place. He sighed, like he'd been asked this 100 times before. He told me it used to be an old boarding school back in the day, and some dark stuff had happened here. He didn't go into details, just said that folks had left in a hurry, and he'd been trying to sell the place ever since. The constant unease, the strange happenings, it all got to be too much. I packed my bags and told Mr. Johnson I was leaving. He didn't try to stop me, just nodded and said he understood. As I walked away from that creepy dormitory, I couldn't help but feel like I was escaping from something that didn't want to let go.